Welcome to the book of Shmuel, Bet Perek, Bet chapter 2, where we start seeing David establish himself as the king of Israel. We saw last chapter how after the death of Shaul and Yonatan, how David laments them, he mourns their loss. Now that chapter of King Shaul being over, now is the time for David to insert himself as king. Remember, David always refused, as long as Shaul was alive, to rebel and actively anoint himself or try and kill Shaul. But now that Shaul is dead and was killed by Plishtim, the Nar himself, whoever it was, now it's the time to move forward. So the chapter starts off with David asking Hashem. He says, should I go up and now establish myself in one of the towns in Yehuda? Remember, David is from the tribe of Yehuda. He's from Beit Lechem. And so he's been in exile until now, living in Tziklag with the Amalekim, with the Plishtim, wherever it was. And now he is ready to come back and live with his people. So he asks Hashem, should I go sit with the people of Yehuda? Hashem says yes. And he asks Hashem, where should I go? And Hashem says to him, go to the city of Hebron. So Hebron is the first city that David goes to, and he goes there with his two wives, Avigail and Achinoam. Avigail is the wife of Naval, who died in it's another story. So they're both the wives of David HaMelech. So they come, they settle with all their people in Hebron, and the people of Yehuda anoint King David. Well, they anoint him as King David and make him the king of the tribe of Yehuda. So once again, we're split to tribes. In the book of Shoftim, Bnei Israel are divided into 12 tribes. Occasionally a shofet comes and brings them together. And then you have Shaul uniting the kingdom. And now you have a split. You have David, king of Yehuda, and we'll see in a moment what happens with the rest of Bnei Israel. So it starts off with David sending a message to the people of Yavesh Gilad. The people of Yavesh Gilad are the ones who brought King Shaul's body for burial, and he says, thank you so much. And he says, I appreciate what you've done for King Shaul, and I ask you also to be part of my kingdom. Now, who is going to be the successor of Shaul? Who's going to be the next successor of Shaul? So the general, the chief of staff for Shaul, his name is Avner ben Ner. Remember that name, Avner ben Ner. He is the chief of staff for Shaul, and so he's going to now appoint the next chief of staff, and it is Ishboshet, the son of Shaul. What a terrible name to have. The son of Shaul's name is Ishboshet, which is a man of shame, and Avner ben Ner takes Ishboshet to Machanaim, and Bnei Israel appoint Ishboshet as the king of Israel. So the people of Yehuda have David as their king, and the people of Israel have Ishboshet, who's really not a strong figure. He's really sort of inserted there by Avner ben Ner, and they make him in charge of all the other territories, Gilad, Israel, and Ephraim, etc. Ishboshet is 40 years old when he becomes king of Bnei Israel, but his kingdom only lasts for 2 years. Why? Because everyone in Bnei Israel is turning towards David, who is much more charismatic, much more popular, and it's not going well for Ishboshet. Then what happens next is we have a very, very strong presence of David in Hebron, 7.5 years. Remember that number? 7.5 years, David is king of Yehuda in Hebron. So you have this situation of David in Hebron for 7.5 years. And now we have a really, really heartbreaking, bloody, and violent episode. Why? Because the chief of staff for Shaul, Avner ben Ner, and the head of David's army, Yoav ben Tzuria, they go and they have a get-together on a pool. Not like your swimming pool, but if you've ever been to Israel, you know that occasionally places like the Banyas, Lifta, other places have like this pool put together outdoors, and so there's this get-together. Usually there's this area to sit around, and the heads of armies of David and Shaul meet there together. So you have Avner ben Ner, the head of Ishboshet's army, and you have Yoav ben Tzuria, the head of David's army. And so Avner makes a terrible statement, I would say, and he says, let's see who has like stronger soldiers, whose soldiers are, sometimes you do that as a game, like there's I don't know, boxing and wrestling and fencing. So Avner ben Ner is like, yeah, let's see my boys against your boys. You can see where this is going already. My boys against your boys. And he says very famously, Yakumu naha ne'arim v'yisachaku lefanenu. Let the boys come and play in front of us. And Yoav is like, fine. So they take 12 from each. They take 12 from Binyamin and 12 from the servants of David, and they each pull out their sword. But unfortunately, tragically, it's either outcome would be tragic, but it's a tie, and basically they each kill each other. So you have 12 and 12, and they are all equally fast-handed on the sword, and they all basically take each other's lives. And that's when, and they call that place Chelkat Tzurim, and that's the kickoff to a civil war between the people of David and the people of Ishboshet, led by Avner ben Ner. Now, it's interesting. I'll ask you a riddle. Who is the woman mentioned the most in Tanakh? Who's the woman mentioned the most in Tanakh? The answer is Tzruya. Why? There's a woman named Tzruya, and she has 3 sons that are mentioned very often. One is Yoav ben Tzruya, the head of David's army. The other is Avishai ben Tzruya, and the other is Asael ben Tzruya. Those are the 3 sons of Tzruya. They are brothers, and Asael has the unique quality of being able to run very, very fast. It says that he would run as fast as a deer in the field. So Asael chases Avner ben Ner, the head of Ishboshet's army. And he's very quick, and he's sort of fixed on his target, and he won't turn around. And so Avner turns around to Asael, who's pursuing his life, and he says to Asael, look, I know you're chasing me because you want to kill me, but you know that I'm stronger than you, I'm better at war than you, and so I would be very, very, very sad to kill you, so stop chasing me. But he says, look, I really, just find yourself another target. It would make me very, very sad to face your own brother and be like, I killed, to face your brother, Yoav ben Tzruya, and say, I killed your brother. Just basically leave me alone. So Asael, the brother of David's chief of staff, Yoav ben Tzruya, is locked in on Avner, the head of the other army. And the head of the other army, Avner, is like, leave me alone. You know I'm stronger than you. Stop chasing me. But he won't stop. And so, unfortunately, he goes and he turns around and eventually he kills him. And that causes an end to the war once people realize that Asael has been killed. And Yoav and Avishai then are like, okay, this guy just killed our brother. So they chase Avner, and finally, they meet each other, one mountain facing the other. And Avner tells Yoav, look, are we going to fight? Is halanetzach tochal cherev? Is there going to be always bloodshed and killing? Let's stop this. Why don't you tell the people to stop this war? It's just costing lives. I know I just killed your brother Asael, but he was chasing me. And Yoav is like, yeah, you know what? Had you said this in the morning, we wouldn't have this whole episode to begin with. But nonetheless, Yoav takes the higher ground, and he says, okay, he blows the shofar, and he says, okay, the war is stopping, let's not fight anymore. And that's when Avner and his people walk all night near the Jordan River in the Arava, and eventually they come to Machanaim. Yoav returns to where he is with the people of David, and they lost 19 people, including Asael, and Asael. And the people of David killed from Binyamin over 360 people. Asael was carried to Beit Lechem. You can see they're from the same town as David. And they make it all night then to Hebron, where David is at. So that's a summary of this chapter. A lot of new names, but it's important to remember there's a split kingdom. David goes to Hebron, where he's going to be for 7.5 years. Avner ben Ner, the head of Shaul's army, appoints Shaul's son Ishboshet to be king. That's going to last 2 years. Then you have the meeting at the pool of the 2 heads of armies, Yoav ben Tzruya for David's army, and Avner ben Ner for Shaul's army. Avner suggests that they have a duel, and 12 from each take their sword. They all are equally fast, and so everyone dies. And then a war breaks out. Asael, the brother of Yoav ben Tzuya and Avishai ben Tzuya, chases Avner, the head of Shaul slash Ishboshet's army. He's very quick, and Avner is like, "Stop it! I'm gonna have to kill you because you're, pursuing me." He doesn't stop, and so eventually he is killed by Avner. Then Avishai and Yoav chase Avner, and they're like, Avner is like, "Stop it! Why are we gonna have so much fighting? It's just gonna bring more bloodshed." And they call a truce, a ceasefire, whatever you want to call it. That is Perek Bet of the book of Shmuel Bet. Thank you so much for listening.